All right, everyone, welcome. Please do let us know how the audio is sounding today. We were trying out a new little microphone here. So we're going to get started here in just a minute here, answering your questions. We've got a few left over from last week that we will address first, and then we will go into whatever else you guys have. You are welcome to write them right here, right in the comment section, and we will get to them as we can. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. A few things from last week that we wanted to run through. A couple questions that we didn't have time to get to at first. So let's start off with, we've got from Marcus. He had asked good places for flying vacations. We had addressed that last week. We said, hey, check out California, Arizona, Utah, beautiful areas. Alaska's great. Go somewhere, rent an airplane. Veronica had said, I don't understand density altitude. I always get the wrong answer. Veronica, if you're here this week, let us know if you had time to look at that video on the E6B. But in simple terms, density altitude is simply the feels like altitude, what it feels like out there to the aircraft. So it's the pressure altitude. If we tune our altimeter to 290.92 and read that setting, and then we just correct it for the temperature. Because obviously temperature is going to affect the air density. Just those two simple steps, and that is how we find out the density altitude, or overall how dense is the air really, and that's going to determine how our aircraft performs, how much air flows over the wing, how much air flows to the propeller, into the engine, etc. Jude Paul said, when do you think the pilot shortage is coming back? Well, Jude, the true pilot shortage of where the airlines were freaking out because they were so short on pilots, that pilot shortage likely will be coming back here sometime, probably a year and a half to 2 years as far as feeling the shortage. Probably in the 18-month to 30-month range is when people are going to be desperate for pilots once again. There are still places that are desperate for pilots, still places that are desperate for flight instructors around the United States. As far as the airlines, well, there's going to be, passenger demand is going to be low for the next 6 months, 12 months or more. They've retired a lot of aircraft. Boeing is slowing down production for a number of reasons. And so until we get more aircraft out there flying and get the passenger demand back, there'll be some lag time involved in that. The true pilot shortage, that's super squeezed where they're just throwing money around like crazy and offering huge signing bonuses, well, that could be, 2 to 2.5 years away. When are they going to start hiring again? Probably in the 1 to 2 year range is when you'll see airlines looking to start hiring again. And of course, all this depends on what the next 2, 3, 4 months really looks like. So that's kind of the short version there. Other questions we didn't have time to get to last week. And somebody had asked if 30K was enough if they already hold a PPL and plan to get to all the other ratings up to CPL. Do you think 30K is enough to do it? Your videos are awesome, by the way. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And guys, do comment here if the audio quality is good, if you guys can hear me well. Otherwise, we can turn it up a little bit or go back to our old microphone. So if any of you guys listening now just want to go ahead and let us know how's the audio, please do so. As far as that question, is 30K enough? Well, let me direct you to this video and Flight Mike Alpha CPL. We'll see if that one comes up right here. Be a commercial pilot for under 30 grand in less than a year. Now, this is the rare instance of it, right? This does not oftentimes happen. This is the guy that's super dedicated and does everything right. This was Garrett in an interview I did with him up in Anchorage, Alaska. And we won't pause the video right as he's about to scratch his face like you're not supposed to do anymore since coronavirus. But if you guys want to know how he did it, he became a commercial multi-engine pilot for under $30,000 out of pocket in less than a year. Now, he did have like a $6,000 or $8,000 scholarship. So in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it came out to like low 30s total cost for the commercial and the multi-engine. Now, if you already have your private, well then, yeah, even your out-of-pocket could be less than 30 grand. It is doable. Check out his story, how he did it. That video, we'll go ahead and put the link here in the live stream chat for you guys. Loud and clear, appreciate that. And That's awesome. Good to know. Michael Edgerton, I live in Ocala but want to train with you. Well, Michael, I am in Venice right now just because of all this craziness, but we're pretty busy filming our What is Inside of an Aircraft video series, that Cherokee series that we're doing down here in Venice. So we'll be leaving here hopefully in about a week to go back to Alaska. If you are looking for a vacation, come on up to Alaska. We'll be doing flight training up there all summer. So that's where I'll be instructing most of the summer, is up there in Anchorage and Seldovia, just about 100 miles south of Anchorage there. And Joshua, I was 1 week away from my commercial check ride before my college grounded due to COVID. What should a student be doing in an attempt to reduce the time in an airplane to get proficient again? Simulators, big thing. Definitely, at-home simulators. So something like just a regular yoke and pedals, if that'll come up here. Those are great. Yoke and pedals combination, probably $200 some, or this one's $300. There's cheaper ones out there. I mean, if you get just the pedals and just the yoke by itself, it's cheaper. X-Plane is, whatever it is, like $60-$70 to buy X-Plane. It's at $59. It's not much. Simulator is going to be your best bet staying proficient here for the next little bit while we're waiting for things to get back to normal, quote unquote, until people kind of go back to how things were and start flight training again, start doing check rides again. But that's the deal with that. So X-Plane, great tool. Other than that, go to the airport anyways. Try to fly if anybody is going flying. Try to hop in the airplane with anyone you can. Anyone that will take you flying. Just hang out around the airport and keep studying. That's your absolute best bet to stay up on this stuff. Go through the courses. There's a lot of free material on YouTube. There's a lot of free material on our site. And then, if you're a member on our site, go through the courses on Flight Mike Alpha. Stay proficient with that stuff. There's a ton of stuff that we keep posting on here. If you go to that news tab, you'll see a lot of different things that we have on there, all our courses, and all that good stuff. So keep studying, keep up with it. Also set a goal for other things you can do. So if you were just about to do your commercial ride, well then, can you go and get your CFI and FOI writtens knocked out right now? So what can you do while you're stuck at home right now? Under courses, we've got the CFI courses up now, so you can jump in and try to knock out the FOI, try to prepare for your CFI oral, try to get the FIA, the flight instructor rating, flight instructor written done. That would be a great thing to do, Joshua, during this time. Simon, yeah, Alaska is pretty awesome. X-Plane is great. I know Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming out with a new one, or just came out with a new one. I don't know much about it, so I have never tried it, so I don't want to comment on it just yet. But I know X-Plane is a solid bet, and it is pretty cheap. I'm not sure what they're going to be charging for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, but I'm sure it will be good as always. I've just always found X-Plane to have slightly more realistic actual aerodynamics than the other ones out there. And John, yeah, we're doing well. Definitely a lot of fun doing the Destroying an Airplane video series. It's more than just destroying an airplane. I mean, the whole idea here is that we make it educational and try to show you guys what is inside of an airplane. Obviously today we had kind of our fun little video that we just posted up a few hours ago. I don't know if you guys already saw it or not. What happens when a watermelon hits a propeller? Will this buff out? It was a lot of fun making that video. But it all kind of, fun stuff aside, well, it's about educational stuff. It's about our safety messages. If you actually watch the whole video, you'll find that. There's a lot of fun videos coming out. There'll be about 25 videos on YouTube from this series, and about 100 videos on Flight Mike Alpha from this series. On Flight Mike Alpha, if you go under courses and Cherokee video series, you'll start to see where we're posting these up here of max cornering speed, skidding videos, what happens when you lock the brakes, taking apart the wingtip, cutting it off, looking inside the wing there, chopping it all up, describing how the wiring works for your nav light, what happens once you cut that wingtip off, looking inside there, just trying to give you as much information as possible, how thin your skin is or how thick your skin is really, and all that stuff. and then of course just our fun general destruction videos. But we'll organize it out here all into these different tabs here that we've got, basically left wing, right wing, engine, fuselage, tail empennage, engine, instrument panel, landing gear. Everything's going to be cut open, explained, and then some of these parts actually I already have made it out to other airplanes around the country. Anybody that needs parts, we're trying to just donate them the parts that are serviceable, that we're removing, that we're not destroying, and make sure that this airplane can go to good use to continue keeping other airplanes in the air. This is probably one of my favorite ones, a man run over by an airplane. What happens when you are looking down and taxiing rather than looking outside the window? It's a good one to watch. If you guys already have a membership on Flight Mike Alpha, head over there. Courses, and then Cherokee video series is how you get to that. So, Britton asked, what is the best soft field technique for a Cherokee? Well, Britton, best soft field technique for a Cherokee, I don't believe I ever did one of these videos in a Cherokee, but I know we did one in a 172, and honestly, it is the exact same thing. A soft field technique in a nose wheel is all the same. So I'm not sure if you're meaning soft field takeoff or soft field landing. And then again, it's important for us to talk about, is it an actual soft field or is it just grass? Because we often think of, in flight training environments, if it's grass, then it's soft. Well, a lot of times grass isn't really even that soft. It might be a little soft, but usually not that soft. Or is this a really soft field, like muddy, kind of sucking you in? A true soft field could take you 3,000 to 4,000 feet to get the airplane in the air and kicking up a ton of mud and all that. And that's kind of the stuff that we see, in springtime thawing up in the northern states, see up in Alaska and stuff. So, what kind of soft field, again, is it a takeoff or a landing? And then also, is it really soft or is it just kind of pretend soft? Well, the technique is always going to be get as much weight on the wing as possible. Whenever we practice for this, say for the sake of a check ride, we're practicing on a 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 foot long runway simulator, right? We're not limiting you to how long the runway is, although most soft fields are also short fields, but that requires a combination of technique, and that's outside the purview of the ACS, really. Although they try to combine in the ACS with decision making of like, hey, if it's not that soft, maybe you shouldn't pull until you hit 20 or 30 miles per hour airspeed. And then at that point, then you can put the weight on the wing, because now the drag from the grass is becoming exponential. So now it's a good time to put the weight on the wing, get the airplane into ground effect, accelerate. Biggest thing I can tell you, besides just check out these two videos, soft field landing, soft field takeoff. And if you still have questions after watching those, then let me know and we can talk to you about it more. The biggest thing here is you will get the airplane off the ground and it will not be ready to fly yet. So it'll be flying, but if you try to climb out of ground effect, you will have such an enormous amount of aerodynamic drag on the airplane, you will not climb and you will run into trees or a fence or bushes at the end of the runway. You need to keep it in ground effect and as close as possible. If the grass is 6 inches tall or a foot tall, the wheel should be just at the top of the grass. The wheel should be 6 inches or a foot off the ground to get you out of that mud, get you out of the grass, let you accelerate as close to the ground as possible. Ground effect is strongest the closer you are to the ground. That is what is important. Is to keep minimum drag on the airplane. Get to VY if at all possible before leaving ground effect. If it's not possible because the field is so short, well then once you achieve VX, then you could rotate out of ground effect and climb out at VX. Just be very cautious. You got to have an abort point. That's the most important thing with any of these soft field landings or soft field takeoffs, is have your abort point. If you're not off by a certain point, then you need to just reduce power and stay on the ground. So this one, I think we can kind of see as we really hold that nose up and try to milk it off. This was one of our way earlier videos, and that is why it is, well, quite frankly, shaky and not good quality. But you can see how that nose wheel is off the ground. The tires are on the grass, and honestly, this is not that soft. It's grass, it's freshly cut. You can see the grass isn't that tall. But the whole idea here is I'm trying to put as much weight on the wing as possible. But once I get off the ground, then try to stay as close to the ground as you possibly can. And we'll see if I actually have that shot in here of how close the tires are. Oh, of course we don't have that shot, but the tires should only be 6 inches above the ground, all right? So as soon as they break free, you should stay nice and low right there, or even lower. You got to be really low to the ground. That's minimum drag. That's the best soft field takeoff technique. And why am I talking so much about soft field takeoffs? Well, because soft field takeoffs is where you could kill yourself because you impact the trees at 70, 80 miles per hour or whatever it is trying to climb over them. Takeoffs are sketchy and dangerous. Soft field landings, well, you might break a nose gear. That's about the worst thing that can happen on a soft field landing is probably breaking a nose gear because you use improper technique. Probably not going to die. So that's why I'm spending so much time talking about soft field takeoffs. They are way scarier for me than soft field landings. Let's see, what is the next one here? Lots of hellos. Thanks for saying hello, guys. And somebody said it's very expensive. Where's the guarantee for jobs to pay back the loans? Well, it's actually cheaper than college. So for all those people graduating with $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 in student debt, possibly more, and they have no jobs available, there is no guarantee. That's just how it works. You make an investment in yourself by getting a pilot's certificate. You're investing in yourself, and if there are no jobs available, well, guess what? There always are aviation jobs available. Maybe not airline jobs, maybe not Part 135 jobs. There's always aviation jobs available if you're willing to do something maybe you're not really super fond of. Maybe you got to go fly a drone. Maybe you got to go move. Maybe you have to relocate. There's always jobs available if you work hard enough for it, or create your own company. Be innovative. If you work hard, it works. If you're just looking for a guarantee to go become a pilot and then a guarantee that somebody's going to pay you a ton of money, well, look, man, aviation's not for you. And quite frankly, there's almost no industry that's for you because every industry requires that you invest something in yourself, in training, and education before they're going to pay you. That's just kind of how the world works. So let's see here. Next up, do you think now is a good time to start training? Ismail asks. I'm looking into starting a school pretty soon, but I'm worried about the current situation. And P.S. huge fan, love the Free Island Ground School. Thank you. Is now a good time to start training? Absolutely. Be safe about it. Obviously, follow CDC guidelines, follow your local state guidelines. But states are starting to open up again. Again, if you're comfortable with going out there and interacting with other people, then now is a great time to start training. Gas is cheaper than ever. So if you guys are unfamiliar, there's this really cool website called SkyVector. And the best feature on SkyVector is when you go to layers, FBOs, and turn on the 100 low lead feature. And now you can get a pretty good idea of what gas is all around here. So gas last month was $5 a gallon in Venice, now it's $4. But out here in Arcadia, it's $2.90 a gallon. And right up here, we've got $2.59 in Brooksville for avgas. We've got $2.60 up here for avgas, $2.50 over there. It's cheap. I don't know if we're going to see avgas under $2 per gallon, but that is my hope. Perhaps somewhere out near Louisiana, Texas, where it gets cheaper. Maybe it'll be out there, but definitely $2 avgas is really cool. It's half price from what it used to be just a few months ago, which means that is a huge cost savings for you renting aircraft. And that is going to really help you out on the rental prices, at least $10, $20 an hour savings on the fuel. So now is a great time to go start flight training if you can find it in your local area, or come up to Alaska and train with us. So next up, we've got Dennis said, can you shed light on my question, please? Dennis, where was your question? I'm looking for it. I'm at the mass and balance topic and try to get my head around determining the LEMAC. Can you help? Okay, Dennis, I wonder if you're in the States, because we call it weight and balance rather than mass and balance. And LEMAC, if you're talking about main aerodynamic chord and all that, that's, a topic for another time. You can shoot us an email at cfi@flightmycalpha.com. We can send you over what we have for weight and balance. That's in the free private pilot ground school, but that's a little bit more involved than we can do. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to draw really well on this computer screen. But we do have a weight and balance section there on Flight Mike Alpha. So if you watch that video and still have questions, then just email us through the website there. You can go to the website and right up there, ask a question, click on that button. Don't even have to be a member or logged in to send us a question, and we will reply to you. Yoke and pedals are compatible with laptops, absolutely. They just plug in via USB. Efren Ortiz says, I'm in a 141 school right now in Bakersfield. I'm on stage 3 of instrument right now, but keep hearing mixed reviews on going 141 or 61. What is your take? Well, off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember here. I think the national average for a private pilot in Part 141 was 71 hours. The national average for private pilot in Part 61 was 72 hours, and oftentimes Part 61 schools are far cheaper than Part 141 schools, and they've got a little more flexibility. Bottom line is, Part 141 schools advertise that they can get you done, 0 to commercial in 150 hours or something. That's not true. That's just not how it works, because very few people get through in those minimums. Some people do, that are exceptionally bright and have prior aviation experience, but for the most part, you're going to take, the normal 200, 250, 300 hours to get your commercial pilot license that it would take you in Part 61, and you're just going to pay a little bit more for it by going to Part 141 school. So, is it worth it, in my opinion? Well, quite frankly, no. Part 141 schools are good because they can provide funding from the VA for veterans. So veterans need to go through a 141 program to have their flight training paid for. They're also good because they issue flight training visas, and international students come over from abroad and come here and buy our gasoline and pay our mechanics and hire our flight instructors to fly our airplanes here in the U.S. and bring money into our country, which is cool. But as far as, for a local domestic student going 141 versus 61, I don't see any advantage to it. I prefer the 61 route. But that's just me. The structure of 141 can be good, but the thing is, you can have the structure of 141 in 61. It's just not a requirement. So I think you can have all the benefit of 141 in Part 61 and still be in Part 61. The other thing is, if you go the 141 route, and you're part of an accredited college, blah, blah, well, then you can get your ATP instead of 1,500 hours, you could get it in 1,250 or 1,000 hours. So it saves you 250 or 500 hours to get your ATP. Quite frankly, what does that matter right now? Not at all, because, the airlines really aren't going to be hiring for a year or two, and you can get 500 hours in 6 months pretty easy. So it shouldn't really matter too much. But that is that. So moving on here. All right, we've got density altitude questions that if you fly from warm area to cool is tricky. Easy to reason this backward. Best way to remember is at least temp or pressure going down. Look out below. Okay, so maybe that was a different question. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me, honestly. But density altitude questions that ask if you fly from warm area to cool is tricky. So yeah, the acronym or the mnemonic device we use is high to low, look out below. So if you're flying from an area of high pressure to low pressure, look out below, you're going to have an altimeter error if you don't readjust it. If you're flying from an area of warm air to cool air, you're going to have an altimeter error. Nothing to do with density altitude. If you fly from an area of warm air to cooler air, you're going to actually have better performance in terms of density altitude. You'll have a lower density altitude when you fly from warm air to cooler air. So it doesn't, that whole mnemonic device, that works really well for those altimeter-based questions and for temperature-based questions as it relates to altimeter errors. It doesn't work for density altitude. So that is really kind of where that mnemonic device, so to speak, comes from. And thanks for stopping in, Ryan. Britain, 800 feet of grass to 2,500 feet paved runway. Not totally sure what you mean there, Britain. Oh, and you had asked a question about what is the best soft fuel technique for a Cherokee. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but yeah, 800 feet of grass could be equivalent. Or I guess, well, really 2,500 feet of grass could be equivalent to 800 feet of paved runway. If you're trying to take off and land on 800 feet of grass with obstacles in a Piper Cherokee, well, I just probably wouldn't do it. If there's no obstacles, well, you could potentially get the thing off the ground with one person on board. And 800 feet, if you got a good prop, or possibly a climb prop on the thing, and you're taking off light, maybe. But Piper Cherokees with those short Hershey bar wings, they're not really known for their STOL performance. They can land pretty short. They really don't take off that short. They need, a lot of airflow on that wing. So 800 feet sounds pretty short. But Pilatus or Embraer, what's the best? I don't know. What's the best, Ford or Chevy? It's the same stuff, man. I'm a fan of Pilatus, but it's, again, personal opinion. I also have a Chevy. Some people would disagree. They like Ford. Joe Boy, I'm 14. To get my PPL, should I start closer to 16, 17 years old? Which is financially better? Well, Joe, I would say start studying now. Doesn't cost much to study. So study now. And then, yeah, as far as getting in the actual airplane, I'd probably wait till you're about, late 15, early 16 age range in there. But flight simulator and study for your written, study ground school, get up to speed on all that stuff. Study for the commercial pilot written. Don't take it, but you can study for it. Study for the instrument pilot. Study as much as you can now. Put all that knowledge in your head. It'll come back easier, a year or 2, 3 years down the road when you start using it, and you're able to actually get those ratings and stuff. But as far as hopping on the airplane right now, it's fine. I've had students that are 12, 14 years old because their parents want them to go fly an airplane. It's a fun thing for them to do. That's cool. But I don't think it's the best use of money, honestly, unless your parents own an airplane and you're just flying, super cheap. I don't think it's really worth renting an airplane and paying a flight instructor at age 14. So I would just say stick with Flight Simulator. That'll help, and it's cheap. It's really free, basically. And study as much as you can. Next up, we've got working as a pilot for FedEx UPS require the same 1,500 hours as airlines. Well, Omar, actually more, because FedEx and UPS really value their packages, apparently. They require, 1,500 hours minimum. They could hire you at 1,500 hours minimum. They typically don't because they also require 1,000 hours of turbine PIC, meaning you're going to have to be a captain on a jet for 1,000 hours before they really want to look at you. Now, they were starting to maybe possibly relax some of that in February because they were getting short on guys, but not anymore. FedEx and UPS, although there's a lot of night flying, back side of the clock flying, whatever, they pay very well. They treat their people very well. They are great companies to work for. I've never met somebody at FedEx or UPS, any of their pilots, that were not thrilled to be working there. And they, so they kind of have their pick, as to who they hire. I do know UPS is very interested. If you have ever worked for them before, not even as a pilot, but say you're a pilot at the regionals, you want to go over to work for UPS, you're a captain at the regionals. I know they'd love it if you worked for them for a holiday season, driving trucks, delivering packages, whatever, anything in their supply chain. They love kind of promoting within, so to speak. And so that is a big thing for UPS anyways, where they really like to, hire guys that have actually worked for them before. That's something they often talk to you about during the interview. They'll spend a large portion of the interview talking to you about your time working for them in a store or delivering packages, driving a truck, whatever it might be, in a sorting facility, etc. Pilot Danny, I'm flying along the route on a DA-40 airplane, and in the weather forecast along the route, I have cumulonimbus clouds, foci of thunderstorms, not quite sure what you mean by that, and is it right to refuse to depart? Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean by foci of thunderstorms, so if you want to elaborate on that, Pilot Danny, for me, that'd be great. But I'm flying along in a Diamond 40, and the weather forecast along the route is for cumulonimbus clouds. Okay, so if that's the case, is it right to refuse to depart? Say your route is like, I don't know, we're going to go from Venice to Orlando, right? So I'm looking Venice to Orlando along that little purple line there. And we go ahead and look here at Windy, one of my favorite flight planning tools. And we zoom in here and we want to go ahead and look at the radar and satellite and see what's going on with the weather radar right now. Okay, well, flying from here to Orlando, is there a forecast for cumulonimbus clouds along the route? Oh yeah, probably today in Florida there is. Do we see anything right now? Not really, just some light rain. Cumulonimbus down here, we can see the lightning strikes going on, right over here. There's lightning strikes happening. So now what if we go ahead and play this out a little bit? So this is a past view if we want to look at a forecast. Well, bottom line is, if you have cumulonimbus clouds along the route, you're going to fly here to Orlando. There's nothing there. Look out the window. It's not the only reason you would refuse to depart. If there's a forecast for cumulonimbus in the area of Florida, yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff down there. Hopefully you guys can see the lower part of the screen here, right down here. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on down there. You can see all those lightning strikes. Nasty stuff. Stay away from it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to go fly along here. So if you're not comfortable with it, by all means, don't go. But we can see a really intense cell right there. But you should be able to fly from here to Orlando today. It looks like there might be some rain, might be some low clouds. Check. The low clouds could be a problem if you're going BFR. But, I mean, this should be a pretty doable route. So if it's a fine line between being overly conservative and being appropriately conservative. If you're a brand new pilot, maybe you don't want to go on a day like today. You're like, hey, these thunderstorms could come north. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go there and then have the thunderstorms come north and then I get stuck there. That's an even better reason not to go. But just for the sake of cumulonimbus clouds being forecast along the route, you got to look more specifically at, are they going to be there or not? And can you visually avoid them? And can you depart? Sure. And then if you see things building along your route, can you turn back and go back to Venice, go back to Tampa, go back to Sarasota, go back to other options? That's really the key there, is having multiple options, multiple outs before you make that choice to depart. If you're flying around Alaska, okay, so if we zip up here way out west and we go towards Alaska and we say, well, today we're going to fly from Anchorage out here to McGrath. And guess what? There's like, your only way to get there is through this mountain pass. And if that mountain pass is bad, well, then you're really in, that's it. That's the only way to get there. You're kind of in deep crap, right? If you get through it and McGrath is bad and you need to turn back and the mountain pass has gone bad, well, now you're really out of options because your next airports are way farther away and may not have fuel or services there. So when airports are way spread out, it makes life a lot more difficult. That's probably the biggest thing about flying out west or in Alaska that makes it difficult, is there's much fewer options. That's why it's more dangerous. There's fewer options of where you can go to compared to, you look at Florida and you can pretty much jump from airport to airport, with one, if you get a running start, you can pretty much jump from Venice to Sarasota to St. Pete to Tampa to so on. There's so many airports here compared to Alaska. It makes life a lot easier when things are going bad like that for you. But hopefully that kind of answers your question there, Danny, or gives you a rough idea. Marie Paquelette, what are some tips you have for finding an aviation mentor? And as a pilot, would it be best to look for jobs in other countries to help look for opportunities and flight experience? Will, to me, the U.S. always has the most opportunity. That's my personal opinion. There's a lot of stuff happening in aviation here. And as far as how all the other countries around the world are handling this virus nonsense right now, the U.S. isn't the best place to handle it because we're the wealthiest country in the world. Everyone's hurting right now. Other countries, even with less cases, are going to be hurting worse than us because their lockdowns were economically disastrous, just like it hurt us here. And the economic outlook's not going to be looking great anywhere else in the world. It's going to be looking best here. It's not going to be looking great here for the next few months, but it's going to be looking best here than anywhere else. As far as finding an aviation mentor, you got to join your groups. So 99s, Women in Aviation, EAA, local flying clubs, different AOPA flying clubs you can find through the AOP website. That's where you want to look for a mentor. You want to belong to those groups and then just see who you kind of jibe with. Somebody there with more experience than you that you get along with really well, and you can tell they're looking to share their experience and knowledge with someone, and you need that experience and knowledge, and you guys get along well, and you have that mutual respect, and that's how you find an aviation mentor. That's one of the best ways to do it, in my opinion, anyways. The one thing I'll always caution people about is whether your aviation mentor is someone on YouTube, Instagram, from one of those local chapters, local groups, EAA, 99s, Women in Aviation, whatever. No one is an expert on aviation. Not a single person, not me, no one. Do not put too much weight in what other people say, any one person, what they say. They can very easily make a mistake and be wrong. You can take their advice and it may hurt you, right? So take everything everyone else says with a grain of salt. Don't just put all your eggs in one basket and really focus on that one aviation mentor. You need to really think about it and maybe have several people you go to when you have questions. Several aviation mentors is okay. Having people you can kind of cross-reference things with, that's a good thing. You don't want to, it's great to have, somebody to go to, but it's important to also think for yourself. That's probably the most important thing you can do, is make sure you're thinking for yourself. So, next up, we've got Steve Misko. What's a good path for a CFI candidate to get a curriculum ready for the practical test, or for practical and use beyond? Customize a commercially available one or build their own. So, Steve, we're actually, we've debated about this for a long time because I like my CFI candidates to get some practice building lesson plans. And what we do with them, because I don't want to just give them all the lesson plans because then they won't know how to build one on their own. So what we've done with our CFI course at flightmikeelf.com is courses, CFI courses, and the CFI PTS explained in detail actually has the lesson plans for all the PTS in there that are pre-written by us, by a team of CFIs that really knows what's going on, that has been doing this for many, many years. And you can count on those lesson plans to be really good. Now, also in that course, we take you through, hey, you need to go ahead and kind of rewrite some of these in your own style or change things here or there that you think you should. You can always reach out to us and say, hey, can I change this or that? Or what do you think about this? Or why did you do it that way? It's important for you to read through any lesson plans you're using and thoroughly digest them and know what is in them. Because if you show up to your check ride and you're like, I got all my lesson plans, and he says, the examiner says, okay, well, show me a lesson plan on steep turns, and you're thumbing through, and you're like, I forget where it is, or, oh, and then you start reading it for the first time. It's apparent when you start reading a document for the first time, like when I'm reading these questions for the first time, and I'm trying to stumble through reading these questions in the comments here. It's apparent, and that's not going to bode well for you on your CFI check ride. So, yes, commercially available is good. We offer them on flightmikeelf.com. We've kind of changed things from what we saw that was out there from other providers online to what we thought was best and what we thought was going to be best to help you be successful in your CFI check ride. And that's why we put it out there. But we also encourage you to not only read it, cover to cover, but also possibly rewrite some of them yourself to have your own version there when you go for your CFI ride. But it is okay to use commercially available ones as long as you're reading them cover to cover. The thing is, a lot of them out there online that you can buy for $100, buy for $150, whatever, or $500. You buy your CFI binder from some website. It's not current. They're still referencing things from PTS instead of ACS, or there's typos and spelling errors and things that just don't make sense and are inaccurate. We discovered that with pretty much every other product out there when we were building ours and looking at other products. And so we feel that, how we built ours was up to speed for 2020, compliant with everything. And that is, why we chose to go that route. But commercially available is fine. If you're a member on Flight Mike Alpha, definitely head over to the courses, CFI courses, and hit the button in there, request those lesson plans, and we will email them over to you. Next up is Efren Ortiz. Thanks for the answer. I should be done with instrument next month. I'm at 75 hours total time right now and using the GI Bill. Main reason why I came here, and the ATP as well as it attached to the degree. Yeah, so using the GI Bill 141 is really how you have to go. It's hard to use the GI Bill or get as much funding going Part 61, or the VA kicks in more funding anyways when you're doing it the 141 route. So Terrell H, thoughts on getting some professional pilot experience, freight, banner towing, aerial survey, etc. over CFI? Well, take the first job offered to you and take a job. If you have multiple jobs, take the one you like best. That works for where you want to live, what kind of flying you want to do. Banner towing, be prepared for sheer boredom and basically just a few moments of intense terror followed by hours of sheer boredom is banner towing. Freight, similar, but it can be a little more interesting and fun because you're going to different airports at least. Aerial survey, hours of sheer boredom, and followed by a lot of sitting around in random cities and hotels. And CFI, kind of falls into that, moments of terror followed by moments of joy when you see your student go solo or pass a check ride, and then never really boring for me. But I enjoyed the CFI route. I enjoy teaching. If you don't enjoy teaching, don't be a CFI. Go one of the other routes. That's the best thing, is just do what works for you. And although things don't look great right now at the end of April here, well, fast forward a few months later, things hopefully will start looking better after the summer's over. And some of those jobs, banner towing, freight, aerial survey, etc., will be coming back. Aerial surveys, people still need them. People still have to move freight. And banner towing, well, people need to get advertised too. So as beaches reopen, things like that, you'll see the banner towing coming back for advertising. A lot of people have cut their marketing budgets in other places, so maybe it'll free up some money for some banner towing advertising. Omar Fisher, do you think AI will replace pilots in the future? Not anytime soon. Not really. I mean, they can't make a self-driving car. They're not going to make a self-flying airplane for a long time. If you become a pilot now and you look at, do I have a 30-year career ahead of me? Yes, you do. Will your 30-year career possibly involve being, out of the cockpit and watching over systems of some automated aircraft or drone or something? Possibly. There's going to be a lot more
UAS jobs available. Aviation is going to explode because of the demand for UAS jobs. They're going to exacerbate the pilot shortage because they're going to be looking for pilots to fly those UAS at first, fly those drones. So as UAS gets bigger, they're going to be pulling from the airlines, from the CFI world, from freight and banner towing and aerial survey, etc. And they're going to want pilots and people with aviation experience to be involved in the UAS market. And that is going to create a lot of jobs. So will you have a career if you become a pilot today? Yes, you will have a career. Is it going to be always flying an airplane? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you could lose your medical and be stuck behind a desk for 10 or 15 years. That could happen to anybody, ever, and maybe you prefer to be behind a desk. Maybe you get sick of flying or being sick of, staying in hotels. And so you want a desk job and be able to be in your own bed every night. That's how it was for me when I was at the airlines. I got sick of staying in hotels, among other things, and I want to be, kind of home based and go back to teaching. That's what I really enjoyed. So, I think, as far as do I worry about getting replaced by a robot or a computer? No, absolutely not. And Hardcore Gamers, he asked, or she asked, hey, do we need to request flight following again at the time of handoff? No, not really. If you're getting flight following, say you're flying from Sarasota to Orlando, so you take off out of Sarasota, you're talking to Tampa, approach or departure or whatever, getting flight following, they hand you off to Orlando. Vast majority of the time they've made a phone call over to Orlando and hand you off. Occasionally they'll say, hey, you're leaving my airspace. For further flight following, you can try contacting such and such on such and such frequency. Try contacting Orlando Approach on frequency 124.3. Try them in 10 or 20 miles. So maybe you're going through a dead zone, or maybe you're flying north of Tampa and you're in a dead zone here before you get into Jacksonville Center and Jacksonville Approach or whatever. So in that case, sometimes they call, sometimes they don't. If they're giving you a direct handoff, 99% of the time they've called, you don't have to request flight following again. You're talking to them, you're basically getting flight following. If you're talking to somebody in approach, they're looking at the radar screen, they know where you are. If you got a squawk code and you're talking to them, you're pretty much getting flight following. If you're flying here and you're going through a dead zone and they say, hey, in 20 miles, contact such and such or try for further flight following, you can try such and such, you might have to call them up and they say, hey, oh, yes, Tampa called us. Okay, yeah, keep on that beacon code or whatever. Or if they tell you squawk 1200, well, no, you're going to have to call up and do the whole deal again. Hey, request flight following. They'll give you a new beacon code talking to Jacksonville. And, that's kind of how it works. If you're ever in doubt, if you have a beacon code and you're talking to approach, you got flight following. If you're squawking 1200 and you're talking to approach, you probably don't have flight following. So in that case, that's when you would request it again. But just for a regular handoff, no, they should be calling between the two facilities on the phone or letting them know electronically that, hey, you got this other aircraft, now it's your responsibility. He's VFR flight following with the destination of such and such. So whenever in doubt, just query them. But for the most part, handoffs, no, you don't have to ask every time. Nice screen name, by the way, though. Arthur Stifle, the fourth. Mind chiming in on the situation on the pilot shortage? Sorry, it's long. Well, we kind of talked about that a lot if you watched the earlier part of this episode. But pilot shortage will come back. It's 18 months to 30 months away before we are in a severe pilot shortage again. In the meantime, we're going to be in kind of a pilot equilibrium / surplus in some areas, shortages in other areas. Overall, nationwide equilibrium, I would say. If you're a pilot and you want a job, you're probably going to be able to find it. You may not find the job you want, but you're probably going to be able to find a job. And only problem is you might make more money on unemployment than you do as your first pilot job. Because people on unemployment right now are making $1,000 a week, and it's more than most starting pilot salaries, even when things were good. But that's okay. So as far as pilot shortage, yes, it will come back. It'll be probably 18 months to 30 months away. Again, that largely depends on what happens over the next 3 months. If COVID-20 starts and we have a whole nother crazy disease and the world ends, well, no, probably no pilot shortage. But if the world's ending, then you got bigger problems. Honestly, if we don't have a pilot shortage, we've got a lot bigger problems on our hands. If we don't have really big problems, then guess what? We'll have a pilot shortage. The economy will be great. So not much we can really do about it. Just hope for a vaccine pretty soon here. Juan asked, does the altimeter setting account for temperature or just pressure? Juan, is just pressure. All right, so when we look at a METAR report here for like Sarasota, I know that's really tiny, it's probably hard to see, but it says there temperature 2.5, dew point 2.1, altimeter 299 or 4. You're only putting 299 or 4 in the altimeter. Temperature, you're not plugging into your aircraft. that is when we have to do that density altitude calculation, right? We're accounting for non-standard pressure and non-standard temperature to find our density altitude. So the altimeter setting only accounts for pressure 1. Noah, good question though. Noah Alexander asked, other than listening to ATC, what is the best way to know the perfect or most correct way to say things on the radio? I figure you'll just say experience. Well, yes and no, because a lot of experience leads you to the wrong way to say things. If you want to be super duper perfect, well, then we're going to want to go to the AIM, or we're going to want to go to JO 7110.65. JO 7110.65. This is the ATC manual, and this has standard phraseology in it of what they're supposed to say and somewhat of what you're supposed to say, or you can get an idea of what you're supposed to say in there. The AIM also has really good information as to what you're supposed to say and how you're supposed to say things. Bottom line is, you can say things pretty much any way you want, but there's a few things we say properly, like niner. 9 is not the right way to say it. Niner is. We're not supposed to say 2,500. We're supposed to say 2,500 or 2,500. Those are the right way to say things. Other things about talking at non-towered airports. Well, then we have Advisory Circular 90-66 Bravo. So this gives you some general idea of how things are supposed to work at non-towered airports. And although it doesn't give you exact phraseology, it does give you some examples, but it'll say things like, upwind versus departure leg. What is the difference there between an upwind leg versus a departure leg? And then you can inference from that, when am I supposed to call out departure leg or when am I supposed to call out upwind leg? The problem with some of this is things are done so improperly or so differently, sort of that local tribal knowledge or just tribal knowledge in general of how things are really done out there in the real world, that it's really important for you to know the correct way to do these things in the AIM, in JO 7110.65, in 90-66 Bravo. Very important for you to know the right way and try to do it the right way, but for safety's sake, sometimes you have to do it the wrong way. Sometimes it's important for you to say upwind when you're really supposed to say departure leg, but other people in the area just won't know what you mean by that if you say departure leg. They're just kind of like, departure leg, so is that like a 45 degrees, is that straight out? And what does that mean exactly? Take a lot of creative license with it and say whatever you think you need to say to keep safety where it needs to be, to promote safety, to ensure proper communication is taking place. Say whatever you need to say to make sure thorough communication is taking place, and say it as concisely as you can so you're not blocking the frequency. You're blocking only for minimum time. But it's not just experience. There's documents out there that can help you, Noah. OC Aviation. I live in the SoCal area out of SNA. I like to do coastal flights at 1,000 feet. Is it legal to go 500 along the shoreline as long as I'm over the water, or do I need 2,000 feet horizontal from houses and people? Well, if it's not a congested area, which is debatable for those beaches in SoCal, what you're really looking at here. So SoCal area, we're looking at beaches. Obviously, some of these beaches are super congested areas. If they're yellow, then you can definitely make the argument that they're probably congested, right? But congested doesn't mean that just because there's not yellow here, it doesn't mean it's not congested. And just because it is yellow doesn't mean it is congested. Honestly, these yellow areas are many, many years out of date. Quite frankly, most of California should probably be all yellow right now. It's so populated. But bottom line is, if the beach is totally clear and you have a good, safe place to land, or the water is totally clear but the beach is packed, 500 feet from any person, vehicle, vessel, or object. So ecfr.gov. Let's look at part 91 here is what your question is regarding, and I believe it is 91.119. 91.119, minimum safe altitudes. Couple things here. So is it a congested area or not? Probably wouldn't be, right? If you're over the water, there's not going to be no one in the water, so you can always argue that a mile offshore is not congested. So in that case, yeah, be 50 feet over the water as long as you're 500 feet from any person, vehicle, vessel, or object or structure. Not that it's safe. You need to be high enough that you can land somewhere safely. And here's the catch-all, right? So the catch-all is anywhere at an altitude allowing if a power plant fails, an emergency landing without undue hazards to persons or property on the surface can be made. So if you're flying along at 700 feet over the beach, 1,500 feet over the beach, 2,000 feet over the beach, you think you're being safe, your engine quits and you land on the beach and you kill some people. Well, you probably weren't complying with this. You probably should have been at 5,000 feet so you could have glided somewhere else to a less populated area, or you could have glided somewhere else to the water. And you can always make the argument, well, I was at an altitude which allowed me to glide to the water. I just made a terrible choice to land in a crowd of people instead of landing in the water. Still not cool. We don't want to hurt other people with our airplanes. So this is the overarching rule that applies. Can you land somewhere safely without undue hazard to persons or property on the surface? Doesn't say undue hazard to yourself, but let's be real here. We don't want to kill ourselves and go ditch the airplane a mile offshore knowing that we can't swim a mile. And just so you know, I mean, it's really hard to swim a mile. Unless you're like an Olympic swimmer, you're probably not swimming a mile back to shore after a plane crash. So is it legal? Yeah, kind of. The rule that really applies here is 500 feet from any person, vehicle, vessel, or object. You can be below 500 feet AGL or below 500 feet over the water as long as you're horizontally further away. If it is a true congested area, like there's just a ton of people over the water or in the water and on the beach, well, then you need to be 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle within 2,000 feet horizontally of the aircraft. Plus, you have to be high enough that you could glide if the engine quits to an area that's not going to cause hazard to people, persons, or property on the surface. Persons are property, right? So you might not hurt anybody, but if you jam your airplane into a parked car, well, you're still technically breaking the rule. Although I'd way rather hit a parked car than hit people walking on the beach. So that happened here. If you want a case study of this, Venice, Casperson Beach, Florida, very sad story. Guy that did not check his fuel very well. He took off with water in the fuel, and engine quit shortly after takeoff, and ended up killing a father and daughter, 5-year-old daughter, walking on the beach here in Venice. So if you want a case study, it would be that one. It's not a fun story, but that's what happens when you don't do a proper pre-flight, and then you make a choice to ditch on the beach instead of ditching in the water because he didn't want to get his feet wet or whatever. We don't have those two people anymore. Father and daughter are dead because he mowed them down with the airplane. Make good choices. Make sure that you're not flying your airplane in a way that's going to hurt anyone else on the surface. And it's like a loaded gun when we're flying an airplane. It is a deadly weapon. Just like when you're driving your car, it's a very deadly weapon. Do it responsibly. Fly at an altitude and fly in areas that's not going to be hazardous to people or property on the surface and not hazardous to you or your passengers. But if you want a case study, that's one you can go ahead and refer to. Next up, we've got hopefully happier notes. Mr. Papa, lovely screen name. Not sure if you do recommendation of flight schools, but do you have any recommended contacts in the DFW area? I'm closest to Executive Redbird. Unfortunately, not really out there. I don't know of many. Here's what I can tell you with flight schools. I rarely give out recommendations of flight schools unless I know the school and the CFIs working there are all good, and that is rare to have 100% good school, good aircraft, and good CFIs because, I mean, we had a CFI shortage for the last few months and the last year or two, really. And it was hard to come by good ones, or at least 100% good ones on your staff. So here's the deal. Go to a flight school, go to 5 in your area. There's plenty around you if you live in DFW. You're going to ask for references from people that train there. You're just going to go talk to random people and say, hey, are you a CFI here? And they're going to say, no, I'm a student. I'm working on such and such. And you're going to say, great, can I talk to you for a few minutes? I'm thinking about being a student here. What do you think? Talk to their customers, talk to their students, talk to people who have earned their license and ask them how many hours did it take you. Oh, they're saying, oh, you can get your private license in 40 to 50 hours. You talk to 3 or 4 of their past customers and they say, oh, it took me 70, it took me 90, and it took me 68. Well, it doesn't sound like their average is 40 or 50. You can, but obviously those people will cost them a lot more money. So talk to their past customers, look at reviews online, and that is the best way to do it. You got to do your own independent research. The other thing with flight schools is CFIs are constantly coming and going. So they could have fantastic reviews online, all their good CFIs left, now they're just left with ones that are just trying to build time, go to the airlines, and don't care about students. Not that that happens often, but it does happen. And, you really want to talk to recent students, not a student from 2 or 3 years ago. Talk to a recent student, ask them who they used for their CFI, see if you can get that same CFI at that same school, and you'll probably have similar results to that student. So that's the best way to go about it. Gallardo, any preferred multi-engine aircraft that you recommend for a multi-engine IFR training? Piper Seminole, ? The easiest one out there is either going to be the DA-42. Second easiest is probably the Tecnam I think it's the P2006. I can't remember all the different, or 2012, all the different designations, but the Techno Twin or the DA42. DA42 is super easy to shut down, feather an engine. You flip one switch. It's got full FADEC, super easy airplane to fly. A lot of systems knowledge, but not really much more than any other aircraft out there. That's an easy way to go. Alex Ortiz, what is the difference between the white display threshold and the threshold in the yellow? Alex, you're going to have to clarify that for me. I'm assuming you're talking about runway thresholds, and we can look at them here and answer that question for you, but I'm going to need a little bit more guidance if what you're talking about is, let's look here at Sarasota, I know has it. Sarasota Airport. So if you're talking about the yellow stuff here and then the white lines there, if that is what you're talking about, what you want to do is come here to flymikealpha.com, free courses. We click on, then we click on 2020 free private pilot ground school. We come down here to some section that I already forgot, but runway markings. Oh, you know where it is? It's actually earlier on in airport markings and signs. Covers a lot of that in detail in lesson 2. Airport markings and signs describes all that stuff to you there. And then if you still have questions, it's covered again in the nighttime section, I believe, or possibly cross-country flight planning, somewhere down in here. We've got it explained pretty well in detail as far as what all the markings on the runway mean. Although I know this says taxiway lighting and markings explained, it's markings also. So here and then in lesson 2 is where you'd want to look for that in there, Alex. I just got my CFI cert, and after I get my CFI, I want to start instructing, but it looks like flight schools aren't hiring at the moment. Do you have any insight on this matter, Zach? Zach, some are hiring, some are not. Some are short on CFIs, some are not hiring at all. Depends what area of the country you're in. If you're willing to move, well, I'm sure you can find a place to work. If you're not willing to move, then get on Facebook, go to the local airport, print out some flyers, and be an independent CFI. Start instructing in other people's airplanes that need BFRs, IPCs, etc. Just want to get instrument current again, whatever it is. Put your name out there. Hustle. Get out there and hustle. Get your name out there. Once you get a few students, they'll tell their friends. Belong to the local EA chapter. Try to instruct for those guys. They all have airplanes, or most of them do anyways. Join the local flying club and so on. It's not as simple as just walking into a flight school and, okay, you're hired and here's some students for you. You do a little legwork on your own. You'll not only, get a CFI job, you'll be working as a CFI, but you'll make a lot more money working as an independent contractor for yourself than working for a school where they're taking 50% or more off the top of what you're supposed to be making. So that is what I would recommend to you there. Noah says, and what order do you think is the most efficient way to obtain flight credentials? I was told private, instrument, commercial, all additional ratings, multi-engine or seaplane. That's the typical way to do it. If for some reason you end up with a ton of hours during your private, or maybe you have and you just go fly around a whole bunch, maybe it's easier to go private, commercial, and then instrument. But if you want to be private, instrument, commercial at 250 hours, the only way to do it is private, then instrument, then commercial. If you don't mind having 350, 400 hours because you have your own airplane, you're just flying for fun, well, then you can get your private, commercial, then instrument. But the most efficient way, the most cost-effective way, really, is private, instrument, commercial. That's, I'd say, 80 to 90% of the people out there do it in that order. Can I work with my CPL in Africa or Asia airlines before I hit 1,500 hours? Yes. If they start hiring again, yes. You typically have to convert your FA CPL into something else, Sam, into whatever that is for that country. They are hiring, although, would I want to go over there and work? Absolutely not. No. The United States is a great country. I like being here. I like our safety standards here. I like our work rules here as far as how they treat employees. So I'm going to be staying here. If you want to go over there, by all means, go for it. Zach Norton, I'm in Houston. And you said, gotcha. You're willing to move as needed. Get out there on Facebook groups, talk to other schools. If you're willing to move, you will find work, Zach. Marie, thank you for tuning in. And we're getting towards the end here. It is 1:06 p.m., so we're about to finish up. Gone Marbles, what's the easiest way to find an instructor to train you in your own airplane? Easiest way is join your local EA chapter, hang out around the airport, post a notice on the airport bulletin board saying that you're looking for someone, talk to other aircraft owners around the airport, talk to your hangar neighbors, who do they use, Get recommendations, go on Facebook, look at the AOPA website for who got the Flight Instructor Award most recently. So AOPA Flight Training Experience. There's 2019 award winners, 2018, and so on. See who's in your local area. That even if it's not your local airport, find the guy's name, get a hold of them through Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, and then say, hey, I'm at this airport. If they're being awarded, best flight instructor, then they probably have some contacts. They probably have been in the industry for a while. Can you possibly put a CFI to work in the Sacramento, California area? Not sure what you mean by that as far as like what the current restrictions are out there, or if I know of any places that are hiring. But again, best bet is hit your local airport, talk to your local EAA chapter, join flying clubs, women in aviation, 99s, etc. Network, and that is going to be your best option. A lot of stuff happens in aviation through networking. That is your best bet. 100 low-lead adventures. What should the average instrument check ride cost? Looking for an average DPE fee? Somewhere between $600 and $1,000. I have heard things as high as $2,000 for an instrument check ride. That is very rare. Some of them now $1,200, but really somewhere between $600 and $1,000. I think $600 and $800 is pretty. $800 seems to be the going rate in a lot of places around the country right now. Some are still at $600. In 2013, I got my instrument rating. I paid $350. That was the cost of my private, and my commercial was all $350 in 2013. Why has it gone up so much? Demand, supply, and also just the liability of doing it. They're getting sued more often. Attorneys are going after them more often. The price is going up. It's how it is. There are still places in the country that do free check rides. FSDOs can do a check ride. If you do your check ride with the FAA, it is free. They do not charge for it. So if you're willing to wait, you can get a free check ride still. Stephanie, my girlfriend, she just did her CFI check ride with the FAA in Anchorage. It was free. We just had to coordinate with local FSDO to make sure they had an examiner available to do it. One MEA and comms. AFIK MEA does not guarantee agency comms. IFR airway and lose comms. 30 feet on that airway still. Do you need to jump 91, 185 or keep flying the route until you get comms back? One, I'm going to need a little more detail there. So I don't know if you mean 30 seconds instead of 30 feet. But if you clarify for me, we'll take care of that one in next week's session. We'll talk about IFR lost comms because that is a huge part of many instrument pilot check rides. And last question we'll take here, and the rest of them we will address next week. This video will be uploaded to the YouTube channel. It will be there in about a half hour or so you can rewatch the whole thing. Last question we're going to take is, what precautions, Michael Hill asked, what precautions and preventive measures would you recommend as an instructor to be able to conduct flight instruction in this COVID-19 environment? Michael, I am the worst person to ask for that because I'm not a doctor. I'm not even the best I know to do is say take vitamin C. I know nothing about healthcare. My brother-in-law is a doctor. That I am the worst person to give factual, good advice on this, but I'll dispense some advice anyways of what I'm doing. I can tell you what I'm doing. If I really don't know the person, I flat out don't fly with them. If I'm at all concerned that they're sick, I don't fly with them. And if I don't wear a mask at all, just because honestly, maybe it's ill-advised, but I just don't care, and I'm pretty sure I already had COVID-19 when I was stuck on a cruise ship, a month ago. So hopefully I'm immune to it. But if the student is at all concerned, I encourage them to wear a mask. And if they ask or they're concerned, I will wear a mask if they want me to. I will wash my hands before getting in the airplane and touching anything. I will wash my hands after getting out. We just wash and wipe down everything we possibly can with wipes as much as possible. And I will go in, I'll wash my hands, I'll go in and wipe down the airplane, wipe down everything I possibly can before they get in there. If they're older and they're concerned, have them wear a mask, have them wash their hands, just constantly cleaning as much as possible, doing the best we can to mitigate things, keep good airflow in the cockpit. Depending on the airplane, if it's a 152, we'll just fly with the windows open. It's hot down here anyways. If it's Piper Cherokee, we'll fly, with that little side window open, try to get as much airflow through the cockpit as possible. So again, not medical advice, probably
very not good advice because I have no medical background. But that's what I'm doing. And yesterday we did an IPC, and I didn't wear a mask, neither did the other guy. We've been hanging out. He's a buddy of mine. We hang out all the time anyways. And, we would have given it to each other by now. So I didn't feel a need to. And the airplane we flew had been sitting in a hangar for like 5 days. So no need to even wipe anything down, in my opinion anyways. But again, when in doubt, wipe everything down, wash your hands, both wear masks, etc. That can help mitigate things. It's never going to, this thing seems super contagious. So, if somebody's got it, you're probably going to get it too. So use your best judgment. That is it for this week's session, guys. Again, next week we will do, if we are still on lockdown next week, we'll be back here at noon Eastern time, Thursday. It will be May the 7th. We'll see you back here next Thursday. And until then, stay safe. Hopefully you guys keep studying. Get out there and fly if you can. We'll see you guys next week.